Major Garrett is in Osceola, Iowa for us. Major, Thursday is the final debate before the caucuses. Fox is hosting, and Trump has threatened to boycott if Megyn Kelly is a moderator. Can he afford to do that with such a tight race there?
No, and he's not going to. I don't think there's any chance at all Donald Trump boycotts this debate. What, he's going to give up center stage and not have a final pitch to Iowa caucus voters when he's on the verge of possibly winning the Iowa caucuses, setting himself up to win in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina? I think the probability of that is next to zero. And this is one of the things that Donald Trump has mastered throughout this campaign. Create an issue, create controversy, add attention, build the audience, and show up and do the things that he is proven to be effective at doing as a candidate, which is driving home his message of strength and making America great again and all that. But I just find it impossible to believe that right before the Iowa caucuses, when he knows that he has to be serious with Iowa voters and his campaign organization here, not nearly as well developed as Ted Cruz's, has to mobilize and energize people, he wouldn't show up at the debate. But it does create attention, it does create controversy, and that will probably mean ratings, which in the end could benefit Trump.
Yeah, it does seem like an incredibly risky move if you were to boycott. I want to ask you about this, Major. Prominent Republican donor Joe Ricketts has put out a new ad attacking Bernie Sanders. And in the ad, Sanders is described as being too liberal for Iowa. What is the strategy there? Wouldn't Republicans want to go up against a candidate they think is too liberal?
So the idea in some Republican circles is that Hillary Clinton is a more damaged potential Democratic nominee. She's more better known. She's been more heavily scrutinized. Republicans already have sort of a distaste for her built up over decades. The Clintons would say Republicans never gave the Clintons a fair shot and have always been out to get them. But Republicans believe if Hillary Clinton is the nominee, she's an easier target for whomever the Republicans put at the top of their ticket, Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, or somebody else. And Bernie Sanders is a bit of a wild card. And let me give you an insight into that process. About a week and a half ago, the day of the State of the Union address, I had a sit-down interview with John McCain. And he was telling me about an encounter he had back in Arizona, meeting someone who, he said, identified him as a very enthusiastic Donald Trump supporter. They talked about this for a couple of minutes. Then John McCain said, kind of curious about where they might be in the Republican world if there wasn't a Donald Trump, said, well, tell me what, who is your second choice if you can't get Trump? This voter told John McCain, Bernie Sanders. What does that tell you? It tells you that people have become, at least in some parts of the country, so sick of anyone associated with the Washington power structure in either party that a Trump and a Sanders can essentially represent the same kind of change, and if you can't have one, you might be able to live with another. That suggests that there is a certain amount of attractiveness to Bernie Sanders that Republicans like Mr. Ricketts may not be altogether comfortable with. With Hillary, they know what they have, they know what they can run against, they know how they can campaign against it. So that is probably part of their thinking as to taking on Sanders and seeing that he doesn't win if they can have anything to say about it in Iowa, because if he does, that sets him up well for New Hampshire and makes that a very long contest with Hillary Clinton indeed.
Major, speaking of New Hampshire, let's shift to the campaign trail there for a moment. Governor Chris Christie was asked whether he needed to be back in New Jersey taking care of the storm cleanup. Let's listen to his response.
There's been one county that's flooded in the state. One county. That was Cape May County. It's the one county that flooded. So I don't know where from all over the state, since we have 21 counties where that's happened. Second, I don't know what you expect me to do. You want me to go down there with a mop?
He's been criticized before for not spending enough time in New Jersey while he's been on the campaign trail. What's the potential fallout from that comment?
It's interesting. I'm not sure there is going to be a lot of fallout in New Hampshire. There might be fallout in New Jersey. Look, Chris Christie has basically put all his chips on the table, Atlantic City-sized chips on the table for New Hampshire. If he doesn't come in a strong second or third there, doesn't finish credibly near the top, his campaign is over. He knows it. Everyone around him knows it. So time spent away from New Hampshire undermines his entire strategy, which is based on one state. Very risky to begin with, risky in the midst of a natural disaster in your home state because you're torn. What do? Do you act as the governor and take away time from campaigning that you desperately need for this long shot strategy, or do you go back to your state and take care of business? Christie has tried to balance one or the other. And that somewhat flippant comment want me to go back there with a mop? I mean, there are parts of Cape May County that are seriously and were seriously flooded. And there are issues there with property damage and people wanting the state to be more responsive. Does that hurt Christie in New Hampshire? I would say this one thing that it does do. It may remind people of the sort of brusque, tougher side of Chris Christie, which he has tried to downplay in the last couple of months in New Hampshire as he's gotten away from Bridgegate and the other issues that he sort of brought up to New Hampshire that had his negatives much higher than his positives. He's sort of equalized things there. This may be an uncomfortable reminder of that sort of rough side of the Christie persona that not every voter readily embraces. But I'll tell you, it's been a long shot for Christie in New Hampshire from the beginning. It's a long shot now, and he basically made a decision. I've got to spend more time in New Hampshire than New Jersey, or this campaign of mine is effectively over.
All right, Major Garrett. Major, thank you so much.
Sure.